My boys and I have a tradition where every fall I check with them and I have them tell me this year's current musical Mount Rushmore. That's where they name their top four musical artists that would go on their Rushmore. And it changes every year for them. And it's fun to be able to look back and see who they were listening to at what age and what is embarrassing about that now and that kind of thing. My own Mount Rushmore doesn't change too much. I think that's what gets older. Happens as you get older. Mine have remained the same for years. My top four go Prince, Willie, U2, James Taylor. And right now, I want to talk about a song from my third favorite artist, U2. And it's a song you know. It's one of the most recognizable songs of the last 40 years. In fact, next year it will be it comes from the Joshua Tree, which came out in 1987, so it'll be the 40th anniversary. It's called I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and it is a great third quarter song. Let's spend some time with it. There are three stanzas, and as you work through, you see this theme begin to develop. You know the song. The first stanza is all about effort and achievement. I have climbed the highest mountains. I've run through the fields. I've crawled, scaled these city walls, only to be with you. We don't know at this point who Bono's singing about when he says you, but we have a sense because we know you too, and the rest of the song is going to tell us that it's a spiritual song, and he's probably singing to God there. But this whole first stanza is about effort and achievement. It's resume stuff. This is a second quarter kind of stanza. I've done all of this, and I've done all that I can, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for. So the assumption is that as the song goes on, the speaker in the song will find what he's looking for. Okay? So in the second stanza, then, now the focus becomes directions and decisions that he's made that are destructive, that are unfulfilling. Kissed honey lips, felt the healing in her fingertips, spoke with tongues of angels, held the hand of a devil. That hand was warm in the night, and it was cold as a stone. So these are decisions, these are directions that he's gone that haven't worked out, and he comes back to the refrain, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Then the third stanza turns to his faith explicitly. He sings, I believe in the kingdom come, when all the colors will bleed into one. And then he turns and speaks explicitly to Christ. He says, you broke the bonds and you loosed the chains. You carried the cross and all my shame. You took the blame and you know I believe it. Well, this feels like then the song has then moved from effort to bad decision making and then finally moves to some sort of faith or security or completeness. However, we get the exact same line again. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. In fact, in the first part of that, he says, I believe in the kingdom come when all the colors will bleed into one. And then he says, but yes, I'm still running. So here he is. We feel like we would get to the place where he says, okay, now I've put it all together. And then he ends by saying, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. What do we do with that? Well, we could offer a theological reading of the song. I, for sure, read it that way, and I would interpret it that way. But that's not going to be my focus right here, because the song's doing more than that. I want to focus more on how we can read it as a third quarter song. Because, among other things, one of the things that the song does is to celebrate that not having foundness. This isn't a song of defeat, even though he hasn't found it. I mean, just feel it. Feel the sound of it, the musical tone. It's upbeat, even triumphant, despite what we could call this unfinished longing. And the way I read the song, that longing isn't weakness. It's not that things haven't worked well. in a way, the song is celebrating that. It's saying, hey, this is part of my journey. And so there might even be some frustration there within the longing, but ultimately, this is kind of what it's about. And that has a lot to say to us in the third quarter. Because by midlife, most of us, well, we've done a lot. We've had we've built careers, and we've gained and lost relationships. We've had painful losses. We've achieved certain things. Maybe we've had spiritual breakthroughs, maybe not. But despite all of this, for a lot of people, there's something that still remains unsettled. We haven't found it yet. And that's not failure. It's not crisis necessarily. It's just this longing. And that's what Bono is singing about there. And so I think that's what this song is marking, and even celebrating. In midlife, it's one of the things we're called to do, to live in that unfoundness, to keep things open and alive and not shut them down. So ultimately, I feel like the song is speaking to all kinds of people, but you can group midlife people into two main categories that this song is addressing. One is for those of us who do feel restless. We've done all of this. We've tried. We've worked on things. We've worked on our inner lives, maybe our spiritual lives, and we still feel restless. We still feel like we are incomplete. We haven't figured out all the answers. And if that's you, this song is telling you you're not alone. A lot of us haven't found what we're looking for. And in fact, the song is kind of affirming you for remaining alive and open to something new. And so then the other message to the other group of people, it's calling us to that restlessness, to that still haven't found what I'm looking for-ness. It tells us that that's important. That there's an openness to chaos, to new experiences, to the wildness that is kind of inherent in living a life that's full and meaningful. And so if that's you, then maybe you want to think that through. And there's something to be said for having dependable routines and for knowing where you're going and what you want out of life and so forth. But we really hold ourselves back in meaningful ways if we don't allow ourselves to continue to change. I know I like to sit in the same place in the same chair when Tina and I watch our shows at night. Yeah, routine's fine and everything, but I also want to remain open to not finding everything and not establishing and nailing everything down. So, two messages there. If you feel restless, if you feel like you're not checking all the boxes, finding all the answers, you're not alone. And maybe you should feel affirmed for continuing to being open to something else. And the other message, if you feel like you're not changing and growing, or there's not as much openness right now, the song seems to be calling you to open up just a little bit more. So take whichever message feels good to you right now, even if that's not fully what you were looking for. Thanks, y'all.